The day I realized my parents had been sneaking into my apartment wasn't the day everything fell apart. It was the day I finally understood the lengths they were willing to go. I'd walk through the door and notice the lights were on, even though I hadn't touched them. Food I never made would be sitting out. Blankets shaped like someone had just been there. Every little detail whispered the same thing. I wasn't living alone. People say family crosses boundaries because they care. But what if crossing boundaries is the only way they know how to feel close to you? That's when it gets dangerous. And the real story didn't start until I disappeared. Before all that, I wasn't always so guarded. There was a time I thought setting boundaries was simple. You draw a line and people stay on their side. But in my family, a line just meant a challenge. Maybe that's why, even at 29, I'd still get that tight feeling in my chest whenever my mom's name lit up my phone. Or when my dad spoke in that soft, guilt-laced voice he saved for moments when he wanted me to give in without a fight. Growing up, privacy wasn't something I had. I'd watch other kids get to close their doors and be left alone. Meanwhile, my bedroom door may as well have been made of glass. My mom Evelyn would just walk in. No knocking. Sometimes humming a tune, sometimes dead silent, always poking around. She'd flip through my notebooks, skim the pages, and fire off questions that sounded like concern but felt like control. "You're always hiding something," she'd say like it was a flaw, never once stopping to ask why I felt like I had to hide in the first place. My dad Thomas never stepped in. He'd give a tired shrug, mumble something about keeping the peace, and let her keep going. Meanwhile, my younger sister Lionel lived like a VIP under a totally different set of rules. Her room was sacred, off-limits to everyone. Her clutter was creative. Her mistakes? Just phases. Mine were always treated like warnings, red flags. Our house had 2 rulebooks, one strict, one soft. And I knew exactly which one was written for me. So when I finally got my own one-bedroom place overlooking the Denver skyline, I thought I'd made it. I thought I'd finally crossed into adulthood. I picked out my dishes, arranged my bookshelf how I liked it, strung up warm lights that made evenings feel calm. Calmer than anything I'd ever known. I started breathing differently there. Slower. Deeper. Like for once my lungs believed they were safe. But that feeling didn't last. The first time my mom let herself in, she played it off like a sweet surprise. Showed up with groceries I didn't ask for. Pulled an apron, her own apron, out of her purse and got straight to cooking like she'd been counting down the days. My dad made himself at home on the couch, said he wanted to enjoy the view. But his eyes kept drifting toward the stack of mail on my counter. I told myself they just didn't realize that it was a mix-up. That once I explained, they'd back off. But deep down I already knew better. I'd explained things to my mother before. It never changed a thing. Then came the little intrusions. A container out of place. Clothes I hadn't worn in ages showing up in the hamper. A faint dent on my pillow. Lionel swiping my sweater without saying a word. My laptop screen left open to tabs I didn't open. Each one small enough to dismiss. But altogether it felt like a rising tide. And I recognized it. I'd lived it before. Just like when I was younger, my mom called it love. My dad called it keeping me safe. And I was supposed to smile and call it normal. But this time it wasn't their house. It was mine. And part of me already knew. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. If I didn't stop them, they'd claim this space too. One unlocked door, one oops. One little favor at a time. The shift didn't hit all at once. Crept in slowly. Quiet. Like a cold draft through a window you thought was sealed shut. I'd get home from work and spot something just barely off. A cabinet cracked open. My spices shuffled around. Towels folded differently. Edges turned out instead of in. Tiny details. Easy to brush off. But that's how my mom operated. Not with big explosions but with breezes. Breezes that turned into winds. Winds strong enough to push you back into the version of yourself she understood. Then one Thursday evening, I walked in and found my refrigerator completely reorganized. Everything was in a different spot. Items I never touched were suddenly front and center. My leftovers were gone, replaced by neatly labeled containers that weren't mine. And there was a note written in my mother's handwriting. Just trying to help. Love, Mom. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just overstepping. This was a routine. A rhythm I wasn't part of, but one they were perfectly comfortable dancing to. I wasn't being included. I was being managed. I stood there for a long minute, holding the fridge door open, cold air brushing past me, trying to steady my breathing. I wasn't shocked. Not really. Just tired in a way that sat in my bones. I didn't call her. I didn't yell. What was the point? She'd twisted into a guilt trip or a lecture about how ungrateful I was. Instead, I changed the locks. Quietly. No announcement. No warning. Just done. For a little while it worked. The changes stopped. Nothing was out of place. I started to believe I had finally drawn a line deep enough for even her to see. Then came the knock. It was Saturday morning. Early. I opened the door and there they were, my parents, standing like nothing had changed. My mom looked annoyed. My dad wouldn't even meet my eyes. "You changed the locks?" she said, like I just insulted her in public. I nodded. "Yeah, I did." She scoffed, stepped past me without waiting for an invitation. My dad followed behind her, quiet as usual. She headed straight for the kitchen like she owned the place. Started opening cabinets. Frowning at what she found. Or didn't find. "Don't you have any decent food in here?" she muttered. I stood there, frozen between anger and disbelief. "You can't just come in here anymore," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You're our daughter," she snapped. "We worry." "This isn't about worry. It's about control." She turned, eyes sharp. "Control? Is that what you think this is?" "No. It's what it is." Dad finally spoke, his voice low, trying to smooth things over. "We just want to help. That's all. But help isn't barging in. It's not erasing the life I'm trying to build. It's not pretending love means never letting go." That day didn't end with a big blow-up. No screaming match. No slammed doors. Just a cold silence. And then, eventually, they left. But something had shifted for real this time. Because I didn't cry after they walked out. I didn't chase them with explanations or apologies. I locked the door behind them and stood there, hand on the knob, finally certain of something I'd never let myself believe. I wasn't their little girl anymore. And I wasn't going to play that role just to make them feel better. I signed that lease before my fear had a chance to argue. There wasn't going to be a warning, no drawn-out goodbye, and definitely no room for guilt-tripping from my mom or drama from Lyanna. This move had to be quick, clean, and final. As soon as I told Mara and Jonah, they showed up like we were staging a late-night heist, hoodies, gloves, and all. "Tell me again why we're whispering?" Jonah asked while taping up boxes. "Because if they show up," I whispered back, "I might not leave." We packed everything. Clothes, books, dishes, piece by piece, quiet and focused. I left behind anything that tied me to them. Mugs my mom insisted I needed. Sweaters Lyanna borrowed and claimed. Picture frames my dad swore would make the place feel like home. I didn't want anything they could say was theirs. By 2 a.m. the moving truck hummed outside. We carried my life down that hallway one load at a time, each step feeling like a countdown to freedom. When it was done, I locked the door for the last time and dropped the emergency key, my mother's so-called just-in-case key, into an envelope marked for the landlord. No note. No forwarding address. At the new place, the night staff checked my ID, handed me a sleek black keycard, and greeted me by name. That small act hit harder than I expected. Felt like someone finally saw me dash. When I walked into that apartment and the door clicked shut behind me, one clear thought settled in. I didn't move out of spite. I didn't vanish to rebel. I left because disappearing was the only way to finally show up for myself. For 3 days, I kept my phone face down and silent. I let the world fall away and shrank into the quiet. The soft hum of the building, the hollow sound of my steps on hardwood. Every noise inside those walls was mine. I slept through the night without jumping awake. I cooked without finding things mysteriously moved. I breathed air that felt untouched. It was the kind of peace I didn't realize I'd been starving for. But in my family, peace never sticks. On the morning of day 4, I flipped the phone over. The screen lit up like a fire alarm. Dozens of missed calls. Texts stacked up like a timeline of rising panic. My mom. My dad. Lyanna. Even numbers I didn't recognize. Probably neighbors from the old building. "Riley, answer now. This isn't funny. Where are you? We're coming. Call us." Then I saw Lyanna's post on social media. "My sister is missing. Please pray she comes home." Missing. I almost laughed. The irony was so thick it choked me. But the more I scrolled, the more it was clear. This wasn't just them panicking. It was unraveling. I set the phone down, trying to breathe, when it rang again. Unknown number. Something in me said, "Pick it up." "Is this Riley Morgan?" a calm voice asked. "Yes. This is Officer Ramirez with the Denver Police Department. Are you safe at the moment?" My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice level. "I am. I'm calling because your family was involved in an incident at your former address. We need you to come down and confirm a few details." I closed my eyes, let out a slow breath. What happened? They attempted to enter the unit. The current tenants believed it was a break-in. Of course they did. My family never knocked. Never asked. Just walked in. "I'll be there right away," I said. At the station, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. A receptionist pointed me to a conference room. And the second I stepped inside, it hit me like a slap. My mom was seated at the table, mascara smeared, tears carving uneven streaks down her face. My dad stood nearby, jaw clenched, eyes flicking to the door as soon as I walked in. Lionel paced in the corner, arms crossed, her face blotchy, either from crying or from being caught. It was hard to tell which. The second my mother saw me, she gasped and shot up from her chair, making it screech against the floor. "Riley! Oh my God, where have you been? We thought you were dead." Her voice cracked, shaky with panic, but underneath all that fear I heard it. Accusation. Like I'd done this to her on purpose. I didn't take a step closer. "I'm fine," I said quietly. "You had no right to be at my apartment." "That's not your apartment anymore," my dad muttered, like that somehow made it okay. Officer Ramirez stepped into the room, calm and steady. "Let's all sit down," she said. My mother flopped back into her seat, sniffling like she was on stage, clutching her tissues like props. I stayed standing until the officer nodded for me to sit across from them. "Ms. Morgan," Ramirez began, "we need to confirm your safety and location. Your family reported you missing." "I wasn't missing," I said. "I moved." "You moved?" my mother repeated, her voice cracking. "Without telling us? Without telling me dash." That tone used to cut deep. But now? It sounded like the same old trap, just in a new room. "Yes," I said. Lina rolled her eyes. "You're being ridiculous, Riley. If you just told us, none of this would have happened." Officer Ramirez cleared her throat. "Let's go over what did happen. According to witnesses, your family attempted to force entry into a unit they do not own." "That's a lie," my mother snapped. "We thought Riley was in danger. We were trying to help her." "By climbing onto someone's balcony?" Ramirez asked, calm as ever. Lina shifted in her seat. I slipped. "It wasn't like real break-in." My dad rubbed his temple. "We were desperate. Our daughter vanished. What were we supposed to think?" "You're supposed to respect her privacy," Ramirez said. "She's an adult. Her choosing not to contact you isn't a crime." That landed hard. You could feel it in the room, the way the silence settled like a heavy coat. I took a breath. "I moved because you wouldn't stop entering my home." My mother turned to me sharply. "We only went in to help you." "You lied to my landlord," I said. "Told him I was unstable so he'd give you access." She winced at the word lied, but recovered fast. "I was worried. You read my journals. You rearranged my things. You gave Lina a key." Lina scoffed. "Oh please, you act like I robbed you." "You did dash," I said. "You robbed me of my space. My safety." Officer Ramirez interlaced her fingers on the table. "Ms. Morgan, would you like to formally document these boundary violations?" My mother gasped. "Document? She's our daughter." "And you're trespassers," Ramirez replied. "Intentional or not." That hit them harder than anything I'd said. My father leaned forward. "Riley, come on. We've made mistakes, sure, but bringing the police into it." "You brought them in," I said, gently but firmly. "Not me." That truth dropped into the room like a pin in silence. No one had anywhere to hide from it. My mother's lip trembled. "I can't believe you do this to us." I looked her in the eye. "I didn't do anything to you. I just stopped letting you do things to me." Silence followed. Heavy, but necessary. Officer Ramirez slid a form across the table. Given the circumstances, I recommend a written boundary agreement. It's not a restraining order, but it does establish clear expectations. My mom stared at the paper like it was a death sentence. I kept my voice calm. Here are my terms. 3 things. I took the pen. 1. You do not come to my new home. 2. We only meet in public. 3. You do not access my belongings, my accounts, or my mail. Ever. My dad frowned. That's extreme. No, I said, steady as ever. That's adulthood. Nobody moved for a moment. Then, like people slowly realizing the world doesn't bend for them anymore, they signed. My parents first. Hesitant. Grim. Then Lionel, jaw tight, eyebrows drawn in as the reality finally clicked for her. When the paper came back across the table, the signatures catching the light, something inside me loosened. Something that had been twisted for years finally let go. My mother whispered, I miss when you needed us. I gathered the paperwork slowly, keeping my tone calm. You can still be part of my life. You just can't be in my home. Officer Ramirez gave a small nod of approval. When I stepped out of that station, the cold Denver air wrapped around me. Not sharp, not punishing, just clean. Like a fresh start. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt it. Real freedom. Not just given but earned. Chosen. Undeniable. The days that followed were quiet in a way I hadn't known I needed. In my new place, the mornings moved at their own pace. I'd open the blinds and let the sun pour over the hardwood floors, bright, warm, and mine. It was a silent reminder that this peace, this space belonged to me. No surprise visits. No rearranged cabinets. No invisible weight pressing down on me, wondering what line someone had crossed while I wasn't looking. My family kept their word. We only met in neutral places now, usually a quiet cafe near Union Station. The tables were small, and the boundaries were clear. Mom walked in like she was entering sacred ground, careful, uncertain, like she was still trying to figure out the new rules. My dad mostly listened, and Lionel, to my surprise, had changed. Facing the police had humbled her in ways 1,000 arguments never could. We didn't pretend things were perfect. But for the first time, they treated my boundaries, emotional and physical, as real. As something they couldn't bend just because they wanted to. And with every passing week, I felt myself growing into the version of me I'd always pushed aside. I breathed easier. Slept through the night. Woke up without dread. Sometimes healing isn't loud. It's not dramatic. Sometimes it's just the quiet click of a locked door staying locked. Looking back, walking away wasn't the punishment they once thought it was. It was the first time I ever chose me, without apology, without shame. My family's still in my life, just at a distance that finally allows me to live it. And if you've ever had to fight for your own space, for the right to feel safe in your own home, you're not alone. Drop your story in the comments. And hit subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this.